Hi everybody, Dominic Mundy here, Executive Director with the Northeast Spa and Pool Association, back for another episode of New Depths, our podcast and video production that we started doing this year. I'm here today, and it's beautiful, lucked out because it was pouring rain for like 3 days before this, but beautiful day with Peter Muehlbronner. He is with AHI Consulting. He does a lot of pool inspections. He's also a home inspector, has a lot of relationships within the industry, is involved with our Penn Jersey chapter, and is someone in a field or discipline around the pool industry that we haven't really spoken to before. It's a little bit of a niche, so we're going to learn a little bit about what Peter does. So why don't we start right there. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm happy we were able to do this. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, your background, your company, what you do.
As you mentioned, my name's Peter Muehlbronner. I operate AHI Consulting, and I do inspections. I've been in the business for upwards of 30 years now. My background originally was construction, residential construction. And from that, I progressed into home inspections at the advice of a realtor back at the time when home inspections were just starting to come around.
Right.
And he felt I would be a good fit in that line of work. And I was relatively young at the time. But through training, education, and experience, I found it to be a good fit for me. And I got out of construction altogether and went full time into home inspections, as I say, probably about 30 years ago.
Okay.
And since then, I've enjoyed the business. It's a great business, but you're always kind of looking for the next thing or something to add to your existing business. And being at so many homes, looking at the home, the structure, and seeing the pool in the backyard, and clients not knowing anything about the pool, and the real estate transaction going through without anybody understanding what concerns may exist at the pool, I started to think it would be a good component to add to my business.
Sure.
And about 15 years ago, I really went hard into the pool inspection direction. And within the last 5 to 8 years, it's become one of the major components of my business. I actually probably do more in pool inspections than home inspections.
Oh, really?
Now. Yeah.
We were talking about this pool that you've inspected, and you were saying that this actually wasn't a new home sale. This was a case where there were some issues with the pool. I was losing some water. Do you get a lot of that? Is a lot of your business homeowners with existing pools trying to get an assessment, or is it more new home sales, existing home sales, or is it a little bit of a blend?
It's a blend. Majority is real estate related.
Yeah.
Someone's purchasing a home. And in many cases now, especially, I'll do just the pool. I'll walk right by the house and go right to the pool, inspect the pool, and leave. A lot of the local home inspectors refer me for the pool inspections.
Because they don't do pools.
They don't do it. They don't want to do it. And they're happy to have a professional they can refer. In this case, it was most likely an internet search where they found my information. And they were having concerns here with water loss. It seemed to be more significant than they thought it should be, and that was the beginning of the relationship here. We eventually did a full inspection of the pool systems, as well as water loss testing, and confirmed, yes, they are experiencing issues, and the report really helps to accurately and clearly give them an overview of the condition of the pool.
Right.
And then they can start making steps towards correcting issues.
Yeah. So as a home inspector that does pool inspection, that now does pool inspections as a primary part of your business, I know you're involved with our Penn Jersey chapter and have a lot of relationships with pool companies. But you're kind of got your foot in a couple different worlds, right? Like, are you involved with other associations and other organizations that have helped you kind of get established? Yeah,
I am. Yeah. AHI is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and that's really one of the first and one of the larger and respected home inspectors organizations. AHI is American Society of Home Inspectors. of which I just had my 25th anniversary. I just saw that in the magazine the other day. So that was a little surprise. Yeah. Made me feel old, but no, I'm proud of that. It's a high level organization with good credentialing processes.
Good.
And there are local chapters, just like Penn Jersey, Tri-State. AHI is the local chapter near me, and I was heavily involved to the point where I was the president for 2 terms, and have recently rolled off the board, but still attend meetings. Actually, just gave a presentation on pool inspections to home inspectors, and that group and other local chapters have been good referral sources for me.
Yeah.
As well as it's good just to help with maybe some of the other inspectors that are thinking about doing it or doing it already. And not that I'm doing everything right or wrong, but it's always good for them and for me to hear from them what they're doing and how they're doing it to help their business and help the profession. The pool associations have been great for me. I didn't know at first whether it's a relationship that would work, but I feel very comfortable with all the people I've come across and the training seminars that I've attended. And I love the Pool Expo in Jersey. It's one of my favorite things every year to do. It's a great resource for me to meet people and to learn, and that's key. I also do pest control inspections, so there's other aspects of the home inspection spin-off, smaller termite inspections, things like that. So I'm licensed for those, and I have those associations as well. So I'm trying to do the best to share my time amongst all of them. But I will say the direction I want my business to go is pool related, and NESPA, Penn Jersey have been awesome as far as resources and training and camaraderie even. Like I say, I enjoy going to the events.
Well, I mean, that's something that we always sort of pride ourselves on is our family feel, the camaraderie, is, to use your word, within our association. But a lot of what you described in the home inspectors in AHI is a lot of what we hear from members, pool builders and pool service companies and retailers within our membership when they get together. It softens the competitive boundaries and allows you to learn from people that are doing the same thing you're doing. And that doesn't, you can be very good at what you do. You can have a high quality product, you can run a good business, great customer relationships, and still learn something from what someone across the river's doing, right?
Absolutely.
There's always something unique or different or some little way to take a lesson to keep getting better.
Absolutely. I think with AHI, one of the best experiences I had as a member was what they call peer review sessions, where we will literally schedule an inspection at a property, and a dozen inspectors will arrive and go through the house together and just talk about different issues and how they present them and how they feel it's significant, and one other inspector may not feel it's significant. And I can sense that same camaraderie, I think is a good term, and when I attend the pool events. I attended recently a great training seminar on heaters, and the group there was awesome. It was a good exchange of information, and everybody learns from it. Everybody benefits, and if you come away with one or two things, it's worth the effort. It'll help you.
So I've had a few home inspections done for selling houses and buying houses and whatnot, and I know a few home inspectors through my own networking relationships and things like that. I imagine if you're a home inspector and you don't inspect pools, you don't inspect pools. Like it's a whole different, it's different systems, it's different things to look for, there's different safety points, right? So do you work with a lot of inspectors who are they just don't touch pools?
I do.
That's kind of where you come in.
Most of them are afraid of the additional liability. Home inspections are very high liability in themselves, but I think with the pool, it raises the level of safety concerns and the fear of legal issues if something's not presented correctly or accurately. At the recent presentation I did for AHI, I asked how many inspectors in the room actually do pool inspections, and I could see some very hesitant hands go up, and
Right.
most of them said, well, I kind of do an inspection. I'll walk the people around it and point out a few things, but they're not spending the time on the pool that it requires to do
Sure.
it correctly. So that's why a specialist, an individual come in to look just at that, those systems and that environment is beneficial. And that's why I think most of them are happy to refer me.
Yeah.
And their clients are happy, the realtors are happy, and they do their thing, I do mine. It's very comfortable for the buyers. I try to present myself in a professional image and
Sure.
clean cut, and I'm dressed even in the dreaded summer months. I'm there with appropriate professional level.
Yeah.
And I do it year round. So even in the off season, when there's a pool that's closed, I'll go out and inspect it, where a lot of other people don't want to get involved in that.
I imagine you've got kind of two big buckets of points. You've got the mechanical side, that things are functioning well, there are leaks, the equipment pad worked the right way, all that sort of stuff. And then you have the safety side of it, because that's such a big part. And we just finished not too long ago. May was pool safety month, water safety month, I should say. And there's so many different aspects, right, of how the pool is built and then how it's maintained, that it's safe. So I'm sure that's a big part of what you do.
It's a huge part. It's the first thing on my mind when I arrive on site. As soon as I approach the home and getting the lay of the land, the condition of barriers and fences, and then every single component I review has some level of safety review as
Sure.
well. Is it uniform? Is it secure? Is it functioning safely? Are there precautions put into place to aid a weaker swimmer? Things like that. It's a constant thought in my mind, and I often just step back and look at it as a 10-year-old. I was back, I was the age where I was trying to climb into the neighbor's pool all the time as a kid, and you have to think that way, as how would a person or a young child defeat this fence system?
Right.
Or what would I do if I was that age at a pool such as the one behind us, with elevated rocks that would be a natural spot for someone to want to jump off? You have to be aware of those kind of things and look at that as a safety issue. Safety is huge, and I think that's why a lot of people want to stay away from the pool inspections, because there is that high level of safety. It's one of the leading causes of death for youth is drowning, and that comes with a real emphasis on making sure you're covering all those safety issues.
I mean, all our members will appreciate this, because I know that's how they also talk to their customers. So when you're talking to someone who's buying a new house and there's a pool, it's easy to, this coping is not loose, but let's say that two of these tiles are loose. It's easy to look at that and say, well, that's cosmetic, I'll get to it. Well, the coping is also the handhold, right? For someone who's struggling to get to the edge, things like that. It does become a lot of stuff that's otherwise treated as aesthetic actually has a safety function within the pool.
It does, and some people understand that. Some people don't want to hear it.
Sure.
Again, I look at the pool behind us with the raised walls, and I think about handholds.
Yeah.
And it's something I note. And talking to a client, a pool person talking to a client, is helpful. But as an inspector, you're putting it in writing. So to say something and leave the site is one thing. To leave a site and issue a report that's going to be relied upon is another aspect. So putting things in writing, you always say to someone, okay, if you're so sure about yourself, put it in writing.
Right.
Well, I have to.
Yeah,
and I have to document it. And digital photographs of issues and arrows pointing to issues to make it very clear what I'm concerned about.
Sure.
To help the client and to protect myself. It's definitely a component of this industry where you have to be aware of your liabilities.
Right.
We have insurance for that, or I do. Most home inspectors should, But I have errors and omissions and the required insurances to give me some comfort level, but obviously I don't want to rely on that.
But you said you did get, you do have a referral network within the pool industry, obviously. I imagine that gives, when a homeowner talks to the pool company, there's this base, like the assumption going in is like, he's selling me his services and maybe I need his services and all of that. Whether the pool company brings you in or the homeowner brings you in, you now have the opportunity to fracture that dynamic a little bit, to kind of be the independent in the middle.
I do, and I think in a lot of cases, the pool companies are very good as far as the reports that I've seen. But there's that inherent concern of a conflict. Are they presenting an issue to create work? And there's some in the industry that look at pool inspections as a source of work. And they are a source of work for the contractors, but the inspection shouldn't be performed by that same contractor. I do believe there's a fine line there. And in the other home inspection related world, there's a very clear definition of what a home inspector can and cannot do. And one thing they cannot do is refer contractors, nor can they work on a home that they've inspected for a period of time.
Oh.
So
that's a code of ethics kind of thing?
It is.
Yeah.
So the code of ethics in the home inspection industry really make it clear that home inspectors can't cross that line. Ethically, as an inspector, I try to stay away from referring directly a client to a pool service company. And I know a lot of great ones, but I have to be very careful how I handle that question. And often if I'm referred by a pool company, I can then say to the client, well, I can't give you a name of anybody, but I know you received my information from such and such pool company. Why don't you call them? And that's a safe way for me to handle it. And the other safe way is just to refer them to a resource like NESPA's website where they can punch in their zip code and find everybody in the area.
Find a member locator we have on our site, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a good relationship between the inspector, the homeowner, and the pool contractor. Everybody has their interests, but mine's not to fix anything.
Right.
Mine's just to accurately and honestly point out what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And the pool company then can take it from there. I think I generate a lot of work for the pool industry.
Nice.
A lot of pools that change ownership otherwise would never be aware of the issues.
Yeah.
And that creates a long list in some cases of work for somebody.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I know we've seen in some of the numbers we have, but just even anecdotally talking to folks in the industry, talking to our members, you know, that the renovation side of the industry is, I don't know if it's outpacing new builds, but it's certainly a huge part of the market right now because so many pools were built 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. That's about the time, or homes are flipping and people want to upgrade stuff. And I imagine that it's cosmetic. Maybe I'm redoing the patio, the deck, or whatever, but also fixing anything that could have worn down. And that doesn't necessarily mean that a pool that was built 15 years ago was built incorrectly or was built poorly or was built with a bad design. Sometimes things break down, they wear, you know, not everything lasts forever. So walk me through, tell me like how you approach a pool inspection. Like where do you start? What do you look for? What are the most common things maybe that you see come up that are major issues? I have, and I try not to, routines are good to some extent when you're doing an inspection, but if you arrive and do the same thing every time at every site, you could be missing something. Sure. So I try to approach pools differently. It depends on the clients and the situation why I'm there. But my approach normally is unload my truck, get my tools, get my gear, and it's basic stuff, but it's a fair amount of general tools and a tool belt and flashlights and leak detectors and measuring tapes and so forth. But I approach the pool, and usually the first thing I look at is the lay of the land and other issues around the pool that might affect the pool, and then the fence. Usually I'm walking through one gate, right, and that right off the bat sometimes sets the tone. If the gate's missing, then I know, all right, I'm going to have a few things to make notes on. But I'll drop my gear and I'll set up water loss testing. I'll put my equipment in the pool and get that running.
and that's something that I let run typically for about 20 minutes. And I usually set it and run it and leave the pool as I found it. So if the pumps are running, I run the test with the pumps running. While that test is running, I don't want to disturb the pool, so I'll usually go back and really do a detailed evaluation of the barriers and note whether there's direct access from the home to the pool, for instance, things along those lines.
Right.
And I gradually work my way in. I look at patios, surrounds, grading, drainage around the pool area. Right. Was the pool built into an elevated site, or was there excavation to place the pool where they wanted it? How's that going to affect potentially the pool or the system? So looking around the yard is important. I'll then check my water loss test, and by that time it's usually done. I'll shut that off, and I'll really spend time on coping and tile, tapping, sounding, working my way around the pool edge. I wear knee pads. I wear toe protectors on my boots because I do a lot of crawling. And I've gone through so many pairs of pants and so many pairs of boots that I've learned tricks to avoid that. But I'll basically sound the tile all the way around the perimeter, check for loose coping. Loose coping is one thing, but if it's loose and unstable, that kind of bumps it up into another category as far as safety. The tile, is it just loose, or are there underlying issues? So trying to determine what the extent of the concern is and accurately present that. The pool shell, as far as the structure, looking for level structure, cracks, significant movement, and we can go on with the drain covers and return fittings and so forth. But the mechanicals, it's a step-by-step process. What equipment's there? Document what's there. Photograph of each piece of equipment. Photograph of the spec label if there is one remaining.
Right.
And then what are the concerns with each piece of equipment? And I'll often do a second water loss test. I'll often shut the systems down, let it stabilize, and do a second test just to compare it to the first to see if there's any significant change. And in a lot of cases, you have the client right over your shoulder. So it can be a challenge to do your job when someone's watching you nonstop. But that's something you learn, or I learned in the home inspection business, is how to interact with clients. And when to talk to them, gain information, speak once you have all the pieces put together before you present something that's not complete or accurate.
Yeah.
And doing all that with a tablet in my hand, documenting everything I find. And my reports are 75% complete when I'm leaving the site.
Sure.
Digital photographs. I carry my tablet, take photographs with that. I carry an underwater camera to take underwater pictures. I use a GoPro quite a bit on a stick to get down to drains and underwater areas that I don't enter the pool ever, but I use that as a great tool. Right. And then finalize the report and send it out from my office. And it's rare I get calls. It's rare I get questions. So it's pretty much you're in, you're out, you're done, you're paid. Kind of why I like the business.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Great. So I imagine you see so many pools. Some are pretty standard. There's a couple things here or there, and you note those and you do your full report. I just think there's got to be a few times where you've walked out to a pool and they're like, oh, when you're a pool inspector, you're like, okay, and you do the thing like you normally when you walk out, and it's, I don't know, 6 feet out of the ground on one side, or there's a crack in the shell like 10 feet long. What are some of the more extreme things that have almost made you go like, oh my God, what am I looking at?
I'd love to say it's a terribly exciting business with all kinds of unusual things, but it does become routine to some degree with the issues that I find. But there are the pools. One is, pool pop situation, where you arrive and you look at the pool and the one end's dramatically up. And I can remember in one situation where that was the case, it was about 8 inches off. Wow. And the seller of the property was there, and she overheard me talking about the concern, and she simply walked up and said, "It's been that way forever. It's fine." And you kind of chuckle, and it probably has been that way for quite some time. But as an inspector, I can't put in my report, "It's been that way for a while, and it's okay."
Seller said it's good.
Yeah, seller indicated no problem. So you have to stand firm with concerns.
Right.
But there's the normal abandoned pools with things floating in the pool that you would never want to touch. Frogs in pools. And maybe this occurs more than I know, but I do recall in one situation I popped a skimmer up, pulled the basket out, and this cute frog, pretty big frog, right down the drain, right down the skimmer line. So I quickly ran over to the pump, turned everything off, opened the pump, and there he was. Popped him out, threw him on the ground, he hopped away. So that was one of the more amusing situations, and I felt bad, but I like to think the frog survived, but I wonder what his ride was like through that line. But
that's crazy.
It's usually wildlife, sometimes neighboring properties. I had a rooftop pool that was an interesting structure. It was constructed above a garage.
Residential property?
Wow. And that was for the insurance company. They had a home inspection, so they learned that this pool was there, and nobody knew anything about it. So they asked me to go out and evaluate the pool as well as the structure, which I'm good for that situation because of my home inspection abilities.
Right.
So, but that house was straight out of the 70s. The interior of the house was shag carpet. The pool had astroturf around it on the roof, and it was an interesting house. There was a lot of paraphernalia around the house and around the pool, which made it humorous. But it's usually people know I'm coming, and anything that's terribly exciting has probably been addressed. Yeah, right. There's no big pool parties going on when I arrive. So it's a relatively boring job some days, but there's always some unusual instance that makes you realize it was worth me coming out. So
yeah, interesting. Well, I will always ask, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think is interesting for our members or for people in the industry that might be listening to this and want to hear? Yeah,
I think we touched on it a little bit, the relationship between the inspector and the pool industry. In the home inspection world, home inspectors and contractors don't always get along that well. And it's usually an ego thing. I think for myself, I don't claim to know it all. I'm learning every day. And I think that's a huge part of being the business I'm in.
Yeah.
The individuals in the inspection world that believe they know it all are, it's a problem. And I look at my relationship to the pool industry as a big help to me, and I hope helpful to the pool companies and the pool industry. I look at inspections as a professional service. I don't arrive in shorts and sneakers or flip-flops. I think my presentation of the issues in a well-documented professional report helps to raise the pool industry professionalism. And for a homeowner to know that there are specialists or professionals available to offer this service, and that a pool service, pool builder might be a great option for repairs, but for a non-biased inspection, there is a source for that. I think that's important.
Yeah.
And I'm respectful to pool contractors whenever they're on site, and there are times where the seller says, well, I'm going to have my pool person there to walk you through the operation, and I'll let them tell me whatever they know,
right.
Because it's helpful. And but I think it's always a good relationship. I've met a lot of pool professionals in that situation, and I maintain contact with quite a few of them. Yeah. So I think this industry is going to grow. I think with myself in the tri-state area being one of the more maybe positive and few individuals that's actually out there promoting it, I think the business is going to grow in this region. And I encourage anybody that's in the industry that has the interest and abilities to look into it. And I travel quite a bit, and I travel because there's just not many local options. I was down the Jersey Shore yesterday, for instance. Oh, wow. So
not today, a bad day to be down the Jersey.
No, actually it was nice, but I think it's a growing industry, and I think it will help the pool industry as a whole. And that's one thing I always feel I need to emphasize.
Yeah. Great.
So thank you for having me today.
Yeah,
and
so
for coming out.
This was great. Again, different, unique. You sort of just said it at the end, a service that is really important, but yet isn't out there necessarily as widely as maybe it could be. Sounds like you're having a lot of success with it, a lot of successful relationships with pool companies. I hope that continues for you. Hope we'll be in Atlantic City this year. Maybe
I hope so.
Catch up and build some relationships.
Yeah. Great.
Well, everybody, latest episode of New Depths. Peter Muehlbronner with AHI Consulting. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.